The morning Linda Harper finally blew up her own little empire. I opened my front door at 6:47 a.m. and heard a loud crunch like metal biting concrete. Her white SUV was angled across my driveway, her front bumper hanging low, and my trash can was still standing there like it hadn't even flinched. The cop looked at her, then at my camera, and said, "Ma'am, how many times have you hit this thing?" I'm Ethan Cole. I'm 42 and I moved into Cedar Ridge Estates because I wanted boring. I'm a union electrician. I leave before sunrise, I come home tired. I pay my bills, I keep my head down, especially with my daughter Mia in the house. Cedar Ridge looks like a postcard neighborhood. You know the type, same lawns, same mailboxes, same beige paint with slightly different shades, so it feels custom. And hovering over all of it like a drone is the HOA. A homeowners association with a rule for everything and a fine for anything that doesn't match community standards. The face of it was Linda Harper, president of the board. Perfect hair, white teeth, those big sunglasses that never come off, and a voice that sounded polite until you listened closely and realized she was talking to you like you were a teenager sneaking into a movie. The first time my trash can went down, I figured it was wind. It was a Tuesday trash pickup day, and when I stepped out, my garbage was everywhere. Coffee cups, cardboard last night's leftovers, splattered across the driveway like a weird, humiliating confetti. I cleaned it up before work annoyed, but whatever. Life happens. Then it happened again the next Tuesday. Same time, same mess, same exact angle, like somebody had knocked it over with intent. By week 3, I stopped pretending it was random. The can wasn't just tipped. There were tire marks close enough to kiss the plastic, and the lid was snapped backward like it took a hit. That afternoon, I got an email from the Homeowners Association with a PDF attached. Violation notice, unsightly. Refuse, it said, and there it was, $75. A photo was attached too. My own trash scattered across my own driveway like I'd done it for fun. I emailed back calm short. This is from someone knocking over my trash can. I cleaned it up immediately. Please advise. No response. The next morning, Linda showed up on my sidewalk with a clipboard like she'd been waiting for applause. She didn't even look at my face at first. She scanned my driveway like she was inspecting a crime scene. "Mr. Cole," she said, smiling, "we take pride in Cedar Ridge. Property values depend on it." I pointed at the fine on my phone. I didn't dump trash on my driveway. Somebody's knocking my can over. Linda tilted her head like I'd said something adorable. "Then you should be more careful. Keep it closer to the garage. Maybe you won't have issues." I knew that tone. It's not advice. It's a threat wearing lipstick. The next week, I put the can exactly where the rules said it should go, by the curb lid closed, wheels facing the house. I even took a photo before bed because at that point I felt ridiculous, like I was documenting my own sanity. At 6:10 a.m., the can was on its side, and my driveway looked like a landfill. At 6:30, my phone buzzed another email from the Homeowners Association. This time it was $125, and the wording changed to failure to maintain refuse management procedures. That's when Mia started to notice. She came out rubbing her eyes, took one look at the mess, and just said, "Dad, are we the trash house now?" That one sentence hit harder than any fine, because it wasn't just annoying anymore. This was turning my home into a joke. I went door to door after work, polite, trying not to look like the new guy who's already causing drama. Most people smiled, shrugged, and gave me that suburban face, sympathetic but not involved. Then Donna Parker, the older woman 2 houses down, leaned close and said quietly, "It's Linda." She didn't say it like gossip. She said it like a warning. "Linda Harper?" I asked. Donna nodded once. "I've seen her swing that SUV around on Tuesdays. She accidentally nudges your can. Then she looks back, like she's checking her work." My stomach tightened. Because suddenly every piece clicked into place, the timing, the fines, the silence. When I emailed, the way she'd stood there smiling like she already knew how the story ends. I tried the official route first, because that's how I'm wired. I asked for a hearing. I requested the violation policy in writing. I sent photos, dates, and a calm timeline. Linda replied with one sentence, "The board's decision is final." Then she escalated like she couldn't help herself. She started walking past my house at night, slow, holding her phone up like she was filming a nature documentary, except the animal was my porch. She wrote me up for my grass being over height by half an inch. She wrote me up for my hose being visible from the street. One morning I woke up to a notice taped to my door like I was being served. Failure to comply may result in a lien. And when I ran into her at the mailbox, she didn't even pretend anymore. She smiled and said, "You don't want to fall behind, Ethan. Liens are complicated. Foreclosure isn't something people come back from." She said foreclosure like she was ordering iced coffee. That night I sat at my kitchen table after Mia went to bed, staring at the stack of paper like it was a second job. I pulled up my bank app, my work schedule, and a tab for a real estate site just to see what selling would look like. For a minute it felt easier to leave than to fight a board full of retirees with clipboards. I actually typed out Cedar Ridge Estates in the search bar and hovered over the listings like I was shopping for escape. Then I heard Mia in her room laughing softly at something on her laptop, and it snapped me back. I wasn't going to let some suburban dictator push us out of the only place that felt stable again. So I did what I should have done earlier. I stopped asking for fairness and started collecting facts. I read the Homeowners Association bylaws like it was a contract for $1 million. The rules were full of vague phrases, reasonable community standards as determined by the board. That vagueness wasn't an accident. It was a weapon. And then I started noticing something else. My street had plenty of trash cans that weren't perfect, some too close to the curb, some crooked, some left out an extra day. No citations, no warnings. But the people getting notices knew families, single parents, anyone who didn't look like Linda's idea of Cedar Ridge. Donna helped more than she probably wanted to. She showed me her own folder photos, emails, dates. "I kept these because she's been like this for years," she said, "but she's getting bolder." Then the Garcias on the corner brought out their fines. The Washingtons had a letter threatening a lien over a basketball hoop that was too visible. Different houses. Same language, same intimidation, same signature at the bottom. Linda Harper. At that point it wasn't just about my trash can, it was a pattern. I bought a simple security camera, nothing fancy, nothing dramatic. I also replaced my trashed can with a sturdier one and set it where it belonged like always. Tuesday morning I didn't even need coffee. I woke up, opened the camera feed, and watched the street like I was waiting for a storm. At 6:03 a.m., Linda's white SUV rolled into frame slow, then turned sharp toward my curb. She didn't drift, she aimed. She bumped the can once, backed up, and bumped it again harder. Then she paused like she was deciding whether to finish the job. That pause was the part that made my hands go cold, because it wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. I stepped outside, phone in hand, and she froze when she saw me. Linda lowered her window just enough to let her voice escape. "Ethan, what are you doing out here?" I held up my phone. "Watching you." Her smile snapped on like a mask. "This is harassment. You're harassing a board member." "Lady," I said, and I surprised myself with how calm I sounded. "You've been ramming my trash can for 3 months." She stared like she couldn't believe I'd say it out loud. Then she did the thing people do when they run out of control. She doubled down. The next day I got a certified letter. Total fines $1,200. Deadline 10 days. Threat lien. And tucked in the middle was something new, an emergency assessment for the neighborhood due immediately with no real explanation. Donna read it and said, "This isn't even how they're allowed to do this." So we didn't just complain, we filed, we requested records, we asked for meeting minutes, we documented every notice, every date, every inconsistent enforcement. And then, like karma, has a sense of timing. Linda messed up in the dumbest, loudest way possible. The following Tuesday, she came in hotter than usual. Maybe she was angry. Maybe she thought she could scare me back into silence. Either way, she turned into my curb like she owned the street. But this time, my trash can didn't flip. It held. There was a crunch, a scrape, and her SUV jolted to a stop at an angle so awkward it looked like a bad parking job. Linda slammed the brakes, her door flew open, and she stepped out yelling like she'd been attacked by an appliance. "You sabotaged this!" she screamed, pointing at me like I'd built a trap in my driveway. I didn't say a word. I just tilted my phone so the camera feed was visible, her SUV, her turning in her, hitting it, the repeated weeks of the same behavior stacked like receipts. A neighbor had already called the police because yelling in a quiet subdivision travels faster than Wi-Fi. When the officer arrived, Linda launched into her story at full volume. "He put it there on purpose," she said. "He knows I drive through here and he's trying to damage my vehicle." The officer blinked. "Ma'am, you drive through his curb area on purpose." Linda's face did something weird, like her brain tried to pull the words back into her mouth. But it was too late. She'd just admitted the one thing she could never admit out loud. The officer looked at me. "Do you have footage?" I handed him my phone. He watched for about 15 seconds, then exhaled through his nose like he'd seen this kind of nonsense before. Linda tried to change tactics fast. "I'm the president of the Homeowners Association," she snapped. "He's a troublemaker. He's been violating rules. The officer held up a hand. "This isn't an HOA issue. This is you repeatedly striking property." That same night we had what Linda called an emergency board meeting, except this time it wasn't her controlling the room. The community center was packed and people weren't there to sip coffee and nod. They were there with folders. Donna played her clips. The Garcias read out the lien threats. I showed the weekly footage, time-stamped clean, undeniable. Linda sat at the front table with that frozen smile, but it kept slipping. Every time someone spoke, her eyes flicked to the exit like she was measuring how fast she could leave without looking guilty. Then the property management rep, the paid company that handles the paperwork, stood up and said quietly, "We've reviewed the notices and the assessments. There are procedural violations here." Linda's head snapped toward him. "You work for us," she hissed. He didn't flinch. "We work for the association, not for misconduct." A board member I'd barely seen all year cleared his throat and said, "Motion to remove Linda Harper as president for abuse of authority." There was a beat of silence, like the whole neighborhood was holding its breath. Then hands went up, one after another, too many to count. Linda stood so fast her chair scraped like a scream. "You can't do this," she said, voice tight, eyes shining with rage. "You people will regret." But she didn't finish because the officer from earlier stepped into the doorway, calm as a metronome. He looked at Linda and said, "Ma'am, we need to talk about the incident this morning." And a pattern. And that's where it ended for her, right there in front of everyone she'd been bullying with PDFs and threats and fake smiles. Because power doesn't disappear with a speech. It disappears the moment the truth finally gets heard. Lesson learned document: everything bullies hate receipts.